Listen closely. Power is closer than you think. Your freedom begins inside, not outside. Control the mind, and the world cannot control you. Marcus Aurelius once whispered to himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That truth, simple yet profound, is where all discipline begins. Think about it. How often do we waste hours wrestling with things we cannot change? The traffic jam, the careless words of another, the storm outside our window. Yet the Stoics remind us, again and again, that none of these have the power to disturb us unless we hand them the keys to our peace. Have you ever noticed how two people can face the same problem, but respond in completely different ways? The difference is not fortune, not genius, it is the mastery of the mind. Epictetus, once a slave, lived this lesson daily. He taught that while our bodies may be chained, our thoughts remain free. True discipline, then, is not about controlling the world, it is about ruling ourselves. A psychologist today might call this cognitive reframing. The Stoics called it wisdom. What story are you telling yourself about your life? Is it one of defeat or one of strength? Just pause, because this is where your discipline is tested most. Every judgment you make, every interpretation of an event is like a seed. Plant fear and resentment, and you will reap anxiety. Plant courage and acceptance, and you will harvest peace. Seneca reminded his students that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Can you feel the weight of that? Most of what breaks us exists only in our thoughts. And so to reclaim your life, you must begin at the root. Train the mind. Notice the thoughts that rise. Question them. Choose the ones that serve your higher self. It is like strengthening a muscle. You repeat, you practice, you grow steady. Share in the comments, have you ever applied this Stoic teaching in your own life? When you held your calm in the face of chaos, did you not feel unshakable? Remember, the world will always bring storms, but storms cannot sink a ship whose captain holds the wheel. Your mind is that wheel, steady it, and you steady your entire life. And from the mind, we naturally move to the heart. The Stoics taught that thoughts shape our lives, but it is our emotional responses that truly test whether we live as masters or slaves. Epictetus, who endured the chains of slavery himself, insisted that freedom is not the absence of hardship. It is the ability to decide how we respond when hardship arrives. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you given away your peace because of a careless word, a late reply, or an unexpected slight? Have you ever let anger from a single moment poison your entire day? This is what the Stoics called emotional slavery, when we surrender the inner throne of our mind to whatever passes by. But discipline calls us higher. Between what happens and how we respond lies a sacred pause, a space so small we often miss it, yet so powerful it holds the key to freedom. As Epictetus taught, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them, and the Stoics practice this daily. They paused. They asked, what judgment am I making about this moment? Is this thought helping me or harming me? Imagine if you did the same. Instead of exploding when cut off in traffic, you breathe and remind yourself, this event cannot touch my virtue. Instead of spiraling into anxiety because a message was unanswered, you step back and ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Just pause. Can you feel how the storm quiets when you choose perspective over impulse? Marcus Aurelius himself, emperor of Rome, faced betrayal, war, and loss. Yet he wrote, "Very little is needed for a happy life. It is all within your thinking." Emotional responsibility is not about ignoring feelings, nor is it about pretending we are made of stone. The Stoics valued emotions as signals, but they refused to let those signals steer the ship. You can feel anger without cruelty, sadness without despair, fear without paralysis. That is mastery, not suppression, but guidance. Begin practicing this today. The next time irritation rises, breathe 3 times before reacting. The next time disappointment visits, ask, what would the strongest version of me do right now? This practice, repeated again and again, builds resilience like a muscle. And slowly you will discover what the Stoics knew all along. No one can take your peace unless you give it to them. And once we learn to guide our emotions, the next step is to anchor ourselves in the only place life truly exists, the present moment. The Stoics were clear. The past is gone beyond our reach, and the future is uncertain, shaped by countless forces we cannot control. All that we ever really have, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, confine yourself to the present. At first glance, that sounds almost too simple. Yet when we look honestly at how we live, it becomes clear how rare this discipline really is. How often do we find ourselves reliving old regrets, replaying conversations that cannot be changed? How often do we leap into imagined futures, creating entire worlds of fear and anxiety from things that may never happen? Have you ever noticed how exhausting it feels to carry both the weight of yesterday and the worry of tomorrow? The Stoics taught that such distraction weakens us, scattering our attention and stealing our peace. But when we draw our focus back to this very breath, this step, this task before us, something shifts. We regain clarity, strength, and calm. Epictetus encouraged his students to give your full attention to what is before you as if it were the most sacred duty. In modern terms, psychologists describe this as flow, that state where time seems to disappear because we are so absorbed in the present. The Stoics practiced it long before we had the word. Imagine eating and truly tasting, walking and truly feeling the ground beneath your feet, speaking to a friend with your entire presence. Can you sense how different life becomes when lived this way? Fear fades, because fear can only exist in the imagined future. Regret dissolves, because regret clings only to the past. Presence clears away the noise so that peace can emerge. Try this simple exercise today. When your thoughts drift, gently bring them back by asking, what is the most important thing I can do right now? It could be listening with patience, focusing on your work, or simply breathing with awareness. What practices help you stay rooted in the present? Every time you return your mind to the now, you are doing a repetition in the gym of discipline, strengthening attention like a muscle. And as the Stoics discovered, when attention becomes steady, so too does the soul. And with presence established, the Stoics invite us to face a deeper truth, the awareness of our own mortality. This was not meant to create fear, but clarity. Marcus Aurelius kept the reminder close. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. For the Stoics, death was not an enemy to avoid, but a mirror that sharpened every choice. When we forget that our time is finite, we drift through days as though they are endless, wasting hours on trivial quarrels, empty distractions, and goals that mean little to the soul. But when we hold the thought, this day might be my last, suddenly priorities reorder. The argument loses its grip. The task left unfinished calls for attention. The people we love rise to the front of our hearts. Have you ever had a close call, an illness, or lost someone unexpectedly? Do you remember how, in that moment, life felt unbearably fragile and how everything unnecessary seemed to fall away? That is the power of memento mori. It clears the fog. It forces us to live deliberately, to spend the coin of time with intention instead of carelessness. Seneca reminded his students, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Can you feel the weight of that? We often speak of saving money, but rarely do we speak of saving moments. Yet time is the only currency that cannot be replaced. Imagine approaching each morning with the question, if this were my final sunrise, how would I spend these hours? Would I live with more courage, speak with more honesty, act with more love? If today were your last day, what would matter most to you? Let that question sit with you and let it shape your next choice. This reflection is not an invitation to despair, but to urgency. When death is kept in view, life gains a sharper edge, a deeper color. The Stoics did not reflect on mortality to grow dark, but to grow alive. They knew that fearing death was, in truth, fearing an unlived life. To accept that we are mortal is to embrace the gift of each fleeting day, to align actions with values before the final curtain falls. And so the discipline of remembering death is, paradoxically, the discipline of learning how to live. And from the awareness of death comes another discipline the Stoics practice, preparing the mind for loss before it arrives. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortune. At first, this sounds unsettling. Why imagine heartbreak, illness, or failure before it happens? But the Stoics understood that fortune is never permanent, and by rehearsing loss in thought, we strip it of its power to crush us in reality. Epictetus told his students, "When you kiss your child goodnight, remind yourself they may not be here tomorrow." Not to grow cold, but to deepen gratitude for their presence today. Imagine pausing to consider how precious your health is, how extraordinary it feels to see, to walk, to breathe without pain. Picture what life might be like if these gifts vanished suddenly. The simplest act, like drinking water or standing under the sun, becomes a miracle. Have you ever noticed how often we forget to appreciate what surrounds us until it is taken away? This practice trains us to value what we already hold. But it does more. By envisioning difficulty, we also train the mind to respond with courage. Instead of panicking when misfortune strikes, we move through it with steadiness, because in a sense, we've already been there. Seneca recommended imagining poverty while living in wealth, eating coarse bread, sleeping on the floor not to suffer unnecessarily, but to remind himself that he could endure and still be free. Modern psychologists might call this building a psychological immune system. By facing adversity in thought, we immunize ourselves against its sting. Consider this exercise. Once a week, close your eyes and imagine losing something dear, your job, your home, even someone close. Then, gently imagine how you would continue. What lessons would you draw? What inner strength would rise? What values would you hold on to rebuild? Share in the comments, have you ever practiced visualizing hardship, and did it make you stronger? The goal is not despair, but resilience. And when real storms arrive, as they surely will, you meet them with a calm spirit, already trained to bend but not break. This is the paradox of Stoic practice. By imagining loss, you learn to love more fiercely, live more gratefully, and endure more steadily. And if imagining loss prepares the heart, then meeting real obstacles is where the practice is proven. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by wars, plague, and betrayal, wrote words that have echoed through centuries. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. To the Stoics, challenges were not interruptions to life's journey. They were life's journey itself. Think of how a muscle grows. It is not built through comfort, but through resistance, through strain, through lifting what feels too heavy. Each obstacle is a weight, demanding effort, and in that effort we grow. Have you ever faced a setback that later revealed itself as a turning point? Perhaps a failure that taught you patience, a rejection that directed you towards something better, a hardship that stripped away what was false so that truth could remain. This is amor fati, the love of fate, not just accepting what happens, but embracing it as a teacher. Epictetus told his students, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens. Then you will be happy." Can you feel the freedom in that? When life's blows no longer feel like unfair punishment, but like training designed for your growth, fear begins to fade. Instead of asking, "Why me?" the disciplined mind asks, "What is this moment shaping within me?" Seneca too advised that difficulties strengthen the soul, the way fire tempers iron. Picture yourself stepping into adversity with that mindset. Instead of shrinking, you lean forward, saying, "This is preparing me." It transforms how you meet rejection, illness, or disappointment. Practical application can begin small. The next time frustration rises, a plan changes. An obstacle blocks your path. Pause and reframe. This is not the end. Think of one obstacle that later proved a hidden gift. Let that memory steady you now. Reflecting on these moments builds faith that even now, whatever you face has meaning. The discipline of loving fate does not erase pain, but it robs pain of its power to break you. With amor fati, everything becomes usable. Every loss, every delay, every wound, woven into the path that makes you unshakable. And if fate already brings us enough trials, the Stoics went a step further. They chose hardship even when life was easy. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men of his time, often slept on hard floors, wore rough clothing, and ate the plainest meals. Why would someone with every comfort available embrace such austerity? Because he knew that comfort dulls the spirit, while voluntary discomfort sharpens it. By stepping willingly into challenge, we strip away dependence on ease and discover what we are truly made of. Think about it. If the first time you face hunger, cold, or fatigue is when misfortune forces it upon you, your spirit will likely break. But if you have trained yourself beforehand, by fasting, by braving the cold, by rising before dawn to work, then when true adversity arrives, it no longer terrifies you. Have you ever noticed how a small inconvenience feels unbearable to those who live in constant luxury? Yet those who have practiced simplicity seem unshaken by far greater storms. This is the paradox of strength. By denying yourself unnecessary comfort today, you gain a freedom tomorrow that no circumstance can take away. Epictetus reminded his students, "Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desires, but by eliminating them." Can you feel the weight of that? To need less is to become invincible. Modern science now echoes this wisdom. Cold exposure boosts mental focus. Fasting enhances clarity. Physical training in discomfort increases resilience across all areas of life. But the Stoics already lived this truth 2,000 years ago. Try this practice yourself. Skip a meal and notice not only hunger but also gratitude when you finally eat. Take a cold shower and feel your mind awaken with a new alertness. Walk when you could drive and appreciate the strength of your body carrying you. These small rehearsals of hardship are not punishments, but preparation. They remind you that your worth is not tied to ease and your peace does not depend on luxury. Name one small hardship you chose this week. What did it teach you? Let that lesson stay with you as you choose the harder path again. The more often you choose the harder path, the more flexible and unshakable you become. And slowly, comfort loses its grip, fear loses its bite, and discipline becomes your natural state. And just as deliberately chosen hardship strengthens us, the way we begin each day sets the tone for everything that follows. The Stoics viewed the morning as sacred, a time to align the mind before the noise of the world enters. Marcus Aurelius would rise and remind himself of his duties, preparing his spirit for whatever trials lay ahead. He did not begin with messages from distant provinces or endless chatter, but with a moment of inner grounding. Have you noticed how easy it is to wake and immediately reach for your phone, letting headlines, arguments, and comparisons dictate your mood before you have even stood up? This, the Stoics would say, is surrendering the day before it begins. To win the morning is to reclaim that first hour as your own. Imagine starting with silence, a brief reflection, perhaps writing a few lines to steady your thoughts, or stepping outside for air, moving your body, engaging in an action that demands focus. Small victories compound, making your bed, finishing a short workout, reading a page of wisdom. Each act whispers to your subconscious, I keep promises to myself. Seneca reminded us that it is not length of life but quality that matters, and quality is built in these ordinary moments. Modern science supports what the Stoics knew: our willpower is sharpest early, before decision fatigue sets in. Use that strength wisely. Instead of scattering your energy on trivial distractions, invest it in what shapes your identity. Have you ever felt how one disciplined choice in the morning carries momentum into the rest of the day? Conversely, how one act of laziness often spreads like a stain? Share in the comments what morning ritual has helped you feel most centered and strong. Remember, it is not about copying another's routine, but about crafting one that speaks to your values. The essence is loyalty to yourself. When you rise and act with intention, you declare war on mediocrity and train the mind to choose effort over ease. Win your morning, and you do more than accomplish tasks. You begin to see yourself as someone capable, someone disciplined, someone in control. And that identity becomes the foundation on which the rest of the day is built. And when the morning is claimed with purpose, the question naturally follows: who are you becoming through these choices? The Stoics warned against chasing outcomes while neglecting the character that produces them. Epictetus urged his students, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. In other words, goals matter less than the person you are shaping with each action. Have you ever noticed how often people set ambitious targets, lose weight, earn more, find peace, yet fall back into old habits? It is because they are trying to graft new results onto an unchanged identity. But every disciplined act, no matter how small, is like casting a vote for who you are. When you exercise, you are not just burning calories, You are voting to be someone who values strength. When you choose patience over anger, you are voting to be someone who is steady. When you write a single page, you are not just filling paper, you are becoming a writer. The Stoics believed that identity was malleable, forged by repetition. Marcus Aurelius did not wake as emperor with calm wisdom ready-made. He built it day by day, each morning aligning with virtue, each night reviewing whether he lived by it. Can you feel how empowering that is? You are not fixed. Each choice is a step toward a future self. What identity are your habits creating right now? If you continue them for 5 years, who will you become? Share in the comments what daily action best reflects the person you wish to be. Discipline then ceases to be a burden and becomes a mirror. Over time, you no longer struggle to force behaviors because they flow naturally from who you know yourself to be. The athlete trains because training is who they are. The Stoic practices reflection because clarity is their way of life. This is why identity-based discipline lasts longer than motivation. It is not about what you must do, but who you are becoming. And each vote you cast through action builds the architecture of that self. Remember, you don't transform overnight. You transform through countless small alignments, lived consistently, until one day you realize you are already the person you once hoped to be. And once identity begins to take root, the next challenge is learning how to sustain it. The Stoics were not dreamers, lost in visions of the future. They were realists who understood that discipline is built on rhythm, not bursts of passion. Seneca observed that successes are not born of chance, but of daily effort. Goals may inspire us for a moment, but they are fragile. They vanish once achieved or crush us if missed. Systems, however, endure. A system is the framework of actions you return to again and again until they shape you effortlessly. Think of it this way. A writer who waits for inspiration may finish one piece, but a writer with the system of writing daily will create a body of work. An athlete with a goal to win may train hard for a season, but an athlete with a system of disciplined practice will thrive for years. Have you ever set a lofty resolution only to abandon it weeks later? That is the danger of living by goals without building the structure that carries you when motivation fades. Marcus Aurelius kept his own system simple each morning. He reminded himself of his duties. Each evening, he reviewed how faithfully he lived by virtue. Nothing elaborate, just a steady rhythm of reflection. Can you feel how that kind of consistency protects you from drifting? Share in the comments what system or habit has carried you through when motivation was gone. To build your own, start small. Simplicity fuels repetition. Instead of promising an hour of reading each day, to begin with 1 page. Instead of demanding perfect discipline in diet, choose one meal where you honor health. Over time, these repetitions compound into transformation. Modern science calls it habit stacking, but the Stoics simply called it practice. What matters is not how much you do at once, but how steadily you return. Discipline grows not from dramatic leaps, but from daily footsteps. When you design systems that align with your values, you no longer have to rely on fleeting willpower. The path becomes automatic. And soon the results you once chased arrive as natural consequences, not desperate pursuits. And when systems keep us steady, the Stoics remind us of an even higher calling. Discipline is not only for our own benefit, but for the good of others. Marcus Aurelius carried the weight of an empire, yet he often wrote to himself that his power meant nothing if it was not used justly. He saw discipline as a duty to serve, not a crown to wear. Epictetus, though born into slavery, taught his students that virtue always extends beyond the self. Our choices ripple into the lives around us. True strength uplifts. Have you ever admired someone not for their achievements, but for the way they stood firm, steady, reliable when others faltered? That is the discipline of service in action. Discipline without justice can become cruelty. Discipline with justice becomes legacy. Seneca reminded his readers, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. Can you feel the weight of that? Every day, we are given countless small chances to use our self-control, not just to advance our own goals, but to ease another's burden, to bring clarity to confusion, to offer calm in chaos. Ask yourself each morning, how can my discipline serve more than me? Perhaps it means holding firm to your values when it would be easier to follow the crowd. Share in the comments, when has someone's steady discipline inspired you to be stronger yourself? The Stoics believed that justice was one of the 4 cardinal virtues because it anchors discipline and purpose. Without justice, discipline risks becoming selfish ambition. With it, discipline becomes service to the whole. And when you live this way, your strength no longer ends with you, it becomes something others lean on, something that outlasts your own lifetime. The mark of a disciplined soul is not only what they achieve, but how their presence strengthens the people around them. Let your discipline be more than personal. It can be the quiet force that lifts a family, a community, even a generation. And when discipline becomes service, it reaches its highest form, virtue itself. The Stoics called wealth, fame, and comfort preferred indifference, useful if present, but never the foundation of a meaningful life. What truly endures is not possessions or applause, but the strength of your character. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed for a happy life. It is all within your mind." The 4 virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, were the pillars of Stoic discipline. Wisdom clears away illusion, giving you sight of things as they are. Courage moves you to act rightly, even when fear presses in. Justice binds your strength to fairness, reminding you that the well-being of others is tied to your own. And temperance steadies you, keeping desire and indulgence from ruling your soul. Have you ever met someone who seemed unshakable, no matter what storms came? It was not because they controlled fortune, but because they lived by these virtues. Money can be stolen, reputation can be attacked, health can fade, but no one can take your integrity unless you surrender it. Epictetus, though born into chains, discovered that virtue was his unbreakable freedom. Seneca taught that life's brevity made virtue the only true wealth. Can you feel the release in that? When you root your life in virtue, external events lose their power to wound you. You become untouchable, not in body, but in spirit. Share in the comments which of the 4 virtues speaks most strongly to you right now. Remember, discipline is not just a tool for achievement, it is the path to becoming a soul anchored in wisdom, courage, justice, and balance. And that is the final victory the Stoics offer us. So as we close, let us return to the words of Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Let those words guide you tonight, tomorrow, and through every trial to come. You are stronger than you believe, steadier than you feel, and far more capable than you imagine. Each disciplined choice shapes the person you were meant to become. Begin with one small step today, and let it ripple outward into a lifetime of resilience. If this message has stirred something within you, like this video and subscribe to the Stoic Room. Join a community devoted to calm strength and inner mastery. Carry this wisdom with you. Slow down, breathe, and remember, the world may shake, but you need not. Stay calm, stay strong, stay unshakable.